as partners with us. Okay, we are now recording. I'm very sorry. But we have actually collaborated on a few different events starting from last year, and then we had the fireside chat, and now we're having a panel of young professionals here. So this is a great example of our partnership and how we continue to work together. So this is a Q&A panel. We have five panelists, right? Five amazing panelists who are young professionals. And this is really important because the hub has 4 areas. We have high-tech learning, careers, business and entrepreneurship, and community education. So today's young professionals Q&A panel fits in with community education, but really with careers. And what's unique about this with young professionals, we often hear from students, how did you get there? I'm not sure what my path is. And what's nice is we've had panelists from a variety of different stages in their career, but what's nice about young professionals is you're a little bit closer to our high school and college students who you've just had that experience recently, right? So you know the concerns and, in real time, right? In 2023 or within the last couple of years. So without further ado, I am going to turn it over to Dr. Barkyum, who's going to introduce our amazing panel because I don't want to take up too much time so they can all speak. So thank you.
Oh, good evening, everyone. My name is John Barkyum, and I'm with the Naval Surface Warfare Center, Carter Rock, one of the Navy laboratories that I'm going to talk about here today. And before we get to our panelists, who I'm really thrilled to have here today, in person and online, I'm just going to give you a few slides, giving you some perspective on what we do in the Navy labs, focusing on the labs here in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. So next slide, please. So this montage slide is primarily to use, I'll start right with the map in the middle. You can see the DC area. And I'm from this lab called Carter Rock, which is, if you know the area, it's near the Beltway, named after some of the geological areas in that area there. And there's the Naval Research Lab below that on the Potomac. And kind of working our way down the Potomac, we have the Naval Surface Warfare Center, Indian Head, the Marine Corps Warfighting Laboratory. Now, we don't have anybody here from the Naval Research Lab or the Marine Corps Warfighting Laboratory today, unfortunately. Dahlgren Laboratory, also further down the river. And also from the Naval Air Warfare Center Aircraft Division with that cool triangular logo right there on the Patuxent River. Now, one of the challenges we have here when we come to talk to all you good people is we have a mouthful of acronyms and words here that really don't really matter that much. And so in the lower left, you'll see something called NAVC, Naval Sea Systems Warfare Centers, and a small map of the entire country, giving an idea that we work across the country. And this is really a umbrella organization that's over a whole bunch of different labs that really focus on the Navy. When you think of the Navy, you think of the ships, the submarines, the airplanes, aircraft carriers, even space area. At the Naval Sea Systems Warfare Centers, we focus on the ships and submarine part of that and support. The Naval Research Lab up in the that's their picture with cool stuff up in the upper middle and up in the upper right. They're primarily pure research. So you can think of them like a research institute, very much like you would see at universities and research institutes. Whereas the other laboratories here, we do across the board. And I'll tell you what that means on the next slide. But before I leave this slide, I'd be remiss if I mentioned Nav Air. So on the lower left, I mentioned this NAVC, Naval Sea Systems. That's Carter Rock, Indian Head that we have here. Over on that side, they really focus, because it's so critical and so important, the aircraft, helicopters, unmanned aircraft, and everything taking off and landing from the ship. So they're different from the Air Force in that they work on the naval aviation part, and we have folks here from that Naval Air Warfare Center. Next slide, please. And I'm going to introduce Dr. Teresa Schaefer from the Naval Air Warfare Center. She's my counterpart down there on the Patuxent River, and she's just going to say a couple of words about NAWC Aircraft Division.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. So, NOC-AD, or Naval Air Warfare Center Aircraft Division, we are part of NAVAIR, so the Navy's arm for anything, Navy and Marine Corps' arm for anything that flies. So, we manage and take care of any aircraft systems, integration of those systems, anything that would be in naval aviation. So things that would take on and off of a carrier or destroyer or other ships that our NAVSEA counterparts will support. And our job is to increase Navy and Marine Corps capability and do this all at a cost that we can afford. So we look at everything from the air vehicle itself. So we're interested in aero and mechanical engineers to look at those systems and subsystems and propulsion systems and in the aircrafts themselves or the assets that are attached to the aircraft. We're going to look at the avionics systems on an aircraft. So electrical engineers, computer scientists, anyone looking at signals and sensors and communication, how that aircraft operates in the sky, or how that aircraft perceives other things that are also around in the sky and on land and at sea. So if anyone went and saw the Top Gun Maverick movie, there is the picture that you see up there on the middle. There's an aircraft called an E-2D, and that is one of the aircraft that you got a very small look in that movie where it was basically the eyes in the sky. So it was the one looking at all the fighter aircraft, telling them what was ahead and what to expect. So we look at the integration of those systems to sense and detect what is all around. And then because our systems have to take on and off of ships, we have to deal with launch and recovery. So how do we catch that aircraft on a wire? So a very dynamic occurrence. And then how do we take off of that carrier? A very short distance. We want our aircraft to be able to move really quickly. And then we operate in one of the harshest environments in the world, out at sea. So it's a very corrosive and rough environment. So our material on all of our aircraft and aircraft systems have to be able to withstand a long life to continue supporting our fleet in a really hard environment. And then we deal with the training of all the pilots and the systems in there. So we'll have digital engineers, modeling and simulation engineers, supporting that aspect and creating virtual environments for us to test the scenarios in our aircraft in. We have about 10,000 civilians that support our workforce, with about half of them being engineers and scientists, and the other half are supporting our business operations. With that, I'm going to go to the next slide, and I believe I will turn it back over to you, Dr. Barkham.
Thank you, Teresa. So on this slide, I'm going to really focus on the Carderock Laboratory where I work, because frankly, that's what I know. But really everything I say here applies to all the other laboratories within the NAVSEA sister laboratories you saw on the map and NAVAIR, and I'll actually mention that at the end. So Carderock, we are the ships, systems, and submarines laboratory for the Navy. And all of the laboratories, everyone represented here today, does what we call research, development, engineering, support, technology, and information across all parts of their specialty area that we do within that. And that's very important because we're very unique in that and an asset to the nation. So starting in the upper left, we do what's called science and technology. That's what you'd normally think of in a university of a scientist or an engineer doing, where they're discovering new knowledge, new ways to apply that knowledge, what works, sort of like maybe early term engineering when you don't know what things work. Moving to the middle, there's test and evaluation. That's where you already have the engineering, you know that, but you really have not tried it out in the environment. And as Teresa mentioned on her slide, when you start taking anything and touching it to the corrosion and the air and the ocean environment, nothing works the way it was planned. Nothing works the way it was designed out of companies. That upper picture is actually our test site in Alaska, where we do acoustic testing of full-scale submarines. So that middle picture is a real deal full submarine. It's in a fjord in Alaska. The lower mid picture is another submarine, and that's actually a magnetic test facility. Those of you who know your electrical engineering or physicals of magnetic fields, those are field coils to produce a magnetic field to understand and counter the magnetic signature of our submarines and ships. Over in the right, and I won't go into detail on all of those, that's research and development. So that's the in between. That's really a large part of our work of taking the research from universities, from companies, and from what we do ourselves, and really developing the advanced concepts. And design is a big part of our work across all of the laboratories to design everything we do. So before I leave this slide, I want to mention, we do the ship. So that's the corrosion, the hull, the signatures, which is the stealth for the ship. Everyone knows the cool stuff with the airplanes, but we're also very interested in hiding and not giving ourselves away for all our ships and submarines. But also, I want to mention that the Dahlgren division, which couldn't be with us today, I haven't talked about the cool weapons and the guns that go bang, and that's Dahlgren division on that, and the radars and all of these things. So we work together very closely. We're privileged here to have one representative from Indian Head Division, if you recall that on the map, and they're very unique because they do the explosives and propellants. So them, along with only one other part of the Navy. So when you see like missiles going off with that large flash and that saying, well, that looks real dangerous. Well, it is. And having the experts and the support people and the science and technology support for understanding that is frankly unique in the country. And they do things that frankly other companies don't even want to do. So there's no option. So we have to have that. And I'll actually let the representative talk. I have good friends at Indian Head and I can go on for a long time. So that's sort of a snapshot. And I think the takeaway message you have here is we hire across the board, from basic researchers to applied to engineers. A good fraction of our people go out in the field. It's not just repairmen, it's actually to understand, improve, maintain, and really solve the problems that are immediately there in the fleet. Next slide, please. And so on this slide, we put up some slides, and I'm actually going to ask my counterpart, Teresa, again to talk about this. So this slide is all about what we do with Navy internships for students and people just getting out of school. So Teresa?
Absolutely. So our goal is to help find pathways for anyone when any path they're in education into our organization. So Naval STEM offers several ways that you can enter. So if you are a high school student looking at finding out if STEM careers and a career with the Navy is for you, then the program called CAP is a great way to enter. So it opens August 1st for next summer. So for this summer, it's already full, but if you're interested for the following summer, apply come August 1st. Its sister program at the college level or graduate level is the NRIP program. So again, this is operated out of the Office of Naval Research and it opens August 1st, and it is for STEM career fields. If you're interested in that program, you can use it to get access to any of the Navy labs across the country, including Carter Rock, Indian Head, Dahlgren, Pax River, Lakehurst, or if you want to go out to my sister division on the West Coast, out at China Lake in California. And those programs are single summers. You apply each summer to be a part of those programs. At the college level, another program that would be great to take advantage of is our SMART Scholarship for Service program. This program is a little bit more intensive in terms of an application, but there's a lot of reward for students. So you not only will get your full tuition paid for, but you also get a stipend to help you be a student and have an internship in the summer. So an application to SMART also opens come August 1st, but it doesn't close until December. If you apply for SMART this year, then you will start with tuition the following fall. So your internship, so an application for SMART coming up this fall, your internship won't actually be until 2025. So it would be for the following summer, but you'd start with your tuition. But SMART's a great way to get your education paid for. And it also has, when you graduate, you will have a job within that organization that picked you up. Now, SMART is sponsored by the Department of Defense, so it includes opportunities across the Army, the Air Force, and other agencies as well. The other two things mentioned on this slide, one is Naval Horizon. So if you are a high school or college student and you want to learn more about the Navy and have an opportunity to earn a little bit of cash prize or scholarship, you can watch videos on the Naval Horizon website, and they will give you a little bit clue onto the various jobs and career fields that different Navy engineers and scientists have. And then you can write a short essay in response to it. So your opinion on what you saw, how it motivated you, what you liked about it, And then that will enter you into the opportunity for a prize. So it's really low lift for potential for a little bit of money. And then if you're at the PhD level, we can talk a little bit more. Contact me about NDSEG. In addition to all of those, we have the opportunity to bring on student interns as civilians through our STEM student employment program. This is managed a little bit differently from Navy site to Navy site, but we can directly hire students into our workforce. This is currently the only program, at least for NAVAIR, that's still open for applications for this summer. Everything else is only available for following summers. If you're interested in learning more about SSEP, reach out to the various links on the bottom of this page, or you can reach out to Dr. Barkram or myself, and I would be more than happy to tell you about opportunities within that.
Thank you, Teresa. And the only thing I would add is we will be doing another one of these sessions with the Ignite Hub later in the early fall, September timeframe. The date's not exact, where we will go over some of these internship programs in detail, a month or two before everything is due. So I want to conclude with more of a bumper sticker slide. That's, can't say more than this. There's an aircraft carrier fully loaded with airplanes. So there's just focusing on this ship, which is something everybody knows is such a key part to our military strength and our country, is every lab here works on key parts of these ships here. That I could sit and name the technologies on here for an hour if someone gave me enough oxygen, and I would talk that long, but I won't. And so I'm obviously, I'm excited after the number of years. I'm not a young professional, and I'm excited to be here with these young professionals. And then now I'm going to actually introduce each one of them and have the folks say their name and where they're from. And then we'll actually get into a little more Q&A with the folks. So let's start right off.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Shannon Donaldson. I currently work at NOC AD Pax River. So I'm part of the NAVAIR portion of the Navy. I graduated from the University of Maryland in May of 2020 as a materials engineer. So what I do at Pax is material support, particularly in the polymers and composites branch. I'm working on a number of different aircraft platforms between the 53K helicopter, the MQ-25 drone, the F-35, along with other sort of science and technology research activities.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brittany Odoms. I am currently a multimedia specialist at Carter-Rock, and I graduated in 2021 from Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond, Virginia. And my major was interdisciplinary studies, focusing specifically in media studies and marketing. So as a multimedia specialist at Carter-Rock, I handle all of our social media, but I also do graphic design and photography and video production with my team.
Hi, my name is Mackenzie Perry, and I am currently a materials engineer at Carter-Rock in the welding, processing, and non-destructive evaluation branch. I went to Virginia Tech for my undergrad and PhD. I just graduated with my PhD in August of 2021 and joined Carter-Rock in September 2021.
Good afternoon. I'm Sorrel Taylor. I currently am the Scientific and Technical Information Officer at Indian Head Division. I'm originally from New Carrollton, Maryland, and received my bachelor's and my master's degree both at North Carolina A&T State University. My bachelor's was in chemical engineering. My master's was in environmental engineering. And how I use those currently at Indian Head is more so all of Indian Head's technical, let's call it intellectual properties. I am the overseer of releasing any of that information.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kayla Petrover. I'm at Carter-Rock as well, and I work as a acoustical engineer there. And I did my undergraduate degree at University of Maryland in mechanical engineering. And currently, I'm both working at Carter-Rock and in a PhD program at University of Maryland, again in mechanical engineering. And for this, I have work that's split two ways. I get to do basic research for my PhD, And I also get to work on different acoustical models for various platforms.
Thanks, everybody. What I'm going to do in the format here is first check and see if we have any questions online. No. And did Jeremy make it? Oh, okay. So, well, for everyone here, we have one more panelist who's remote who I'd love to bring into this. And technically, if we can manage to get him hooked in, I'll have him. Jeremy, can you hear me? Can you unmute yourself? While we're pausing here, what I'm going to do for format is go around to each of the panelists, and I've got some loaded questions that I'll start asking. And don't worry, I'll start with the easy ones, and we'll get to the harder ones as we go along. And ask you to just talk for a minute on a couple of things as they go along. But we have one more panelist who's actually. I will mention something about him while we're trying to get him on here. It's a Mr. Jeremy Nehru, and he's actually another CarterRock employee who works out at our facility that's in Idaho. Now, the nimble-minded among you will say, hey, Idaho, that has nothing to do with ocean. It's potatoes. There's no ocean out there. Our CarterRock facility, we test actually 1/3 scale submarines in that lake because it's like a perfect physics environment for acoustics. Us and other parts of the Navy come to use that to do acoustic testing. It's the same sound speed. And I don't want to get into my professor lecture on this, but it's the same temperature and same sound speed all the way through. And we have a facility. And Jeremy is actually an acoustical engineer out there. He works in the same department that Kayla Petrova does, although she's here in Maryland with us. But he's actually in Florida because we have, of course, submarines in both the Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean. We like both oceans equally. And he's actually doing tests in Florida where we test them right off the coast, right near where Cape Canaveral is where we test that. So that he's trying to call in. So we're trying to get Jeremy on here. And while we do that, I'm going to move to my next question and start right off with Shannon. We'll go in order. So for each of you, was there could you either one moment or sort of like a realization where you thought you'd want to go into the career that you're in now? Was it in high school? Was it in middle school? Did you float along and it was an aha or something? So just a brief statement of where you thought you went to, what got you interested in the direction you're going now.
Thanks. So let's see. I always loved math growing up. And then I took AP chemistry in high school. It's like, okay, yeah, definitely STEM field, definitely. But the question is, which one? STEM is pretty broad. My dad is an aerospace engineer, so he kind of is naturally pushing me in the engineering direction. So he set up a tour for me of the materials division at PAX where I currently work. So that tour was what made me decide to be a materials engineer. I really liked seeing all the different aspects of it and the idea that you can have a set material and do something to it and tweak the manufacturing process or tweak the chemical formula for it, and somehow you come up with something with different properties. And I loved that idea. So when applying to colleges, I applied to University of Maryland's materials department and did like a little orientation thing where I attended both the materials one and the chemical engineering one. And in seeing the difference between what those two do, I was like, no. I like materials. Like I still like that idea of being able to get the material properties I want by making these particular changes. So that's kind of what the real catalyst was for my choice, and continuing down that path and taking my classes and in my job now, it reaffirms that I made the correct choice.
So I think for me personally, growing up, I feel like as we all know, this generation is very big on social media and technology. And so throughout my childhood, social media became more and more popular. And it was something that I always enjoyed just in my personal life, but also I started to think like, okay, well, when it came down to high school and thinking about college and my future, how can I make this into a career? And that's when I learned about mass communications and public relations, and how that was just very fitting for me and how it was something that I truly enjoyed doing. So when I got to college, I originally was a mass comm major, focusing in PR. But because of being a transfer student and just a couple other things, I ended up switching my major to interdisciplinary studies, which just basically means across a field or across a variety of different fields. And I was able to basically take the same type of classes I would have been taking if I still was a mass comm major, just tweak the name a little bit. And so, yeah, for me, being able to create things is very big. And just, I've always been a creative person since I was very young. So, whether it be photo, video, like I said, we do graphic design with my team. So, creating graphics for the base are all things that are very fulfilling for me. And being able to do that as a job doesn't feel like a job to me. So, it's been very enjoyable for me.
Yeah, I would say for me, I have always been a pretty curious person, just asking a lot of those why questions and trying to get to the bottom of that. So definitely by like middle school time, it was clear of like, okay, I'm really into these math and science classes, and my parents are not engineers, and so they were looking at things of like, okay, what can we get for her to be like, okay, what do you want to do within that? Because like you're saying, STEM large. So they actually got me a book of like all these different types of engineering. And it seems like a fake story, but it's true. Like I was like flipping through, and then I got to like the material science and engineering section, and I was like, that's it. That I think that can help me answer the why questions that I have been trying to get to the bottom of. And then yeah, do the next step of like, okay, now that I know why, now we can make it whatever we want. Yeah, that was definitely the start there of material science. And then in high school, I did it was a math, engineering, and science academy. So it was still within like our regular like public high school, but it was sort of like a program where you did all your math, engineering, science classes all together. And I actually, through that program, got to do my those first couple classes of like engineering classes. I got those credits for college, so I didn't have to take them in college. So it was like dual enrollment. Yeah. So that was really great. And in that program, when we had to do like a presentation of like, oh yeah, like we want to expose everyone to different types of engineering, I did my presentation on like material science stuff. So and it was very like nobody knew exactly what that was, and I feel like that's sort of a common thing. And definitely what I hear from other material science students is like, we have to explain it to people that are hiring of like, you do want a material science person. Like it can be more towards the chemistry side. It can be more towards like mechanical and that kind of thing. So yeah, that's sort of how I came here. I guess.
So for me, it started back in, I guess you would say, high school. In the 11th grade I went to a high school not too far down the street from here, Parkdale High School in Riverdale, Maryland. And there was me and two other 11th graders. We were the only 11th graders in AP Chemistry and AP Calculus. Usually AP Calculus is for seniors only. And so one day our AP Chemistry teacher and our AP Calculus teacher came to us and said, you guys are really good. Where are you going to do with this? Like, where are you guys going to go? I didn't have a clue at the time. I just knew I was good at stuff. And so they brought to us, it was a magazine. I don't know if they still do this anymore because I'm talking like 20 years ago. But it was like an Express magazine that showed what people make. And it showed all these different type of careers and how much their salaries were. And they showed us in the book, look at the engineers, look at all these different type of engineers. And so out of us three, I only stayed in contact with two of them. And out of those two, only two of us, myself and one other, became engineers. But I became a chemical engineer, and I looked at it as, I like working with my hands. I'm really good with chemistry. Chemistry was very second nature for me. When you look at like biology, physics, chemistry, I avoided physics like the plague. Now, if somebody were to tell me as an engineer, there's no way you can avoid physics, I probably wouldn't have been as good of an engineer. I could have been a better engineer, but I decided, chemical engineering, yes, let's do that. I get to college, and one thing, if you can't tell, I'm really good with networking. I'm really good with talking and just kind of getting my vision out there. And so during college, when we had our engineering labs, that's when I finally got to shine. Okay, I work well with my hands. You can lecture me a million and one ways, but it's not going to click until I work with my hands. So when I got to Indian Head, there was chemical engineers come into two ways. You either go in a research department or you go into manufacturing. There's no in between. I already did researching in my master's degree. I don't want to do that anymore. So I wanted to get into manufacturing. And that's how that pretty much started the ball rolling for me at Indian Head, with all the different connections that I made, all the different projects that I was able to lead and take it to the next level. And from there, and networking, now what I currently do at Indian Head is more so in the security realm. It's not really engineering, but those engineering lessons and the way that you problem solve, that carries on everywhere that I go in Indian Head.
I started off, I would say, also in 11th grade, junior year. All of a sudden, we were out of a physics teacher. It's a small school, so they decided to hire this grad student from the local college who was studying medical physics, and he started just teaching us physics. And that was the first time where physics itself really clicked for me, really excited me, hearing it from a student who was very excited about it. So then I knew I wanted to do engineering from there. When I went to college, I started going to different classes. And for me, my aha moment was when I attended one class called Vibrations. And from there, I just felt like it was analogous to like everything in life. Because, vibrations, everything has to have a frequency, a natural frequency, a natural rhythm, and it's very visual. Growing up, I was also very interested in art and design and fashion, and that's where I had to make my choice between those two separate, very different career paths. But what I like about engineering is that there's still a lot of elements of design in addition to the problem solving. So just like in material engineering and in chemical engineering, you get to create new products, new things, and it's just very, very exciting. And that's how I ended up choosing mechanical engineering. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody. I believe we have Jeremy online, and he's on the phone and can introduce himself and say something about himself.
Yeah, my name's Jeremy Nareau. I apologize for being a hair late to the party. It's, for Florida being such a flat state, it sure is hard to get cell service out here. So my name's Jeremy Nareau, and I was a really late bloomer in getting into the engineering world. I was a junior in my undergrad before I switched about engineering. Coming out of high school, I was one of those kids that didn't know what he wanted to do. All I cared about was win Friday and, what I was going to do over the weekend in sports. I was fortunate enough. I had an athletic scholarship out of high school. So I went and I was playing football in college, and I made it a couple of years, and I got hurt. And then when that went away, I had to figure out what I was going to do. And I was just sitting there, and it was like the failed panel member. I remember those magazines that talked about what people made, and I saw one of those ones, and I latched on to electrical engineering. And so I was one of those kids. It took me, it was a 6-year undergrad to get a bachelor's degree, and I started working. And then, right after that, I loved engineering so much, and I switched over and I got a master's degree. And then after that, I got hired on as a contractor for NSWC as a research engineer. And well, it's been worked as a contractor, and then the last 4 years did that, and now I've spent the last 2 years working as a government, and it's actually evolved now into a project management role. So it's been very exciting. There's been a lot of growth. And it's different, and I enjoy it.
Thanks, Jeremy. So now that we've got Jeremy to join us, he can be in the rotation as I ask questions. And we don't have any questions online yet. So, okay, great. Oh, I've got. Don't worry, I've got plenty. I'm going through them in an order here. So, we talked about what is the best part about your work. I didn't ask you what the work. So this probably, I'm guessing that, we all have required things and training and things we do that are just not exciting. And I got a shock for you all. That's true in any job. It's like it's not excitement all the time. Going to school is not excitement all the time. If it is excitement all the time, I want to see your parents, because that means you're probably not working. But really, but seriously, just in a snap, what is the best thing? So I'm starting with the questions, put you on the spot. There may not be a best thing, but see how you can answer. Shannon?
All right, the best part of what I do, that's definitely a hard question. There are definitely a lot of pros to my job. I really do love what I do. I think that it's exciting to have something sort of new every day, a bunch of different opportunities. I get to travel a lot, so that's also pretty cool. Last year alone, work took me to 14 different states. Just getting to see different manufacturers, how they're making different materials or different parts for aircraft, whether that's for different training sessions, just to kind of build my technical competence, or whether it's, as part of a rotational program, since that's part of our process for new hires at PAX. So I think those are really exciting. And then I think, yeah, just kind of the technical challenge of it all. I really like that. And just being able to see all these different aspects of engineering. One thing that I've noticed over the past few years is that, when you are going to a contractor to see the work that they do, or you're at a conference or something, there are often times where they'll ask the contractors to step out of the room because of NDAs and proprietary information. But if you're government, you get to stay. And so that allows additional opportunity to see all of these cool, different sort of research and technology developments that are occurring across the nation. And so it's even more of a chance to learn and get ideas and sort of grow. So I think those are probably two of my favorite things about working.
So this is actually kind of an easy question for me. Like I said, I'm a very creative person, and my whole role at just what I do is I get to be creative every day. But honestly, being able to get the opportunities that I've been able to have at my job has been really amazing. I have been at Carter Rock for less than a year. It'll be a year in July. And within the first couple of months, I was sent to the Pentagon to take photos on behalf of the Navy. I've never been to the Pentagon a day in my life. And being able to be there and take photos, and then have those photos be put out, and at the bottom it's a U.S. Naval photo by and my name, is always really rewarding to be able to see. As well as like being able to be a part of, we just won an award for our Orion campaign on social media, which was like an amazing thing too. And being able to be a part of projects like that, where I can get and my team can get the recognition for it, and all the hard work we put in, is probably the best part of it for me.
Yeah, so I had a few things written down, and some of them I just thought of when I was hearing everybody talk. So yeah, I feel like the first thing is that it's been really cool. I've only been here for less than 2 years, but it's been really cool to see how big the Navy is, or just, all the different organizations. And there's so many different roles, and just that there's just like so many different jobs to make everything work. And, some of the stuff that John was talking about of, we all play like some sort of role in that. And I think that's really cool. I think probably the best thing about my job is the freedom to sort of make it be your own, as long as you are aligning to the overall mission and sort of like the mission of your branch and division and that kind of thing. They put a lot of trust in you and in your group to do the research and development work that you think is beneficial. So I feel like that's definitely the best thing. And then also just it's been really cool to find different people that might not be or that are especially not like within your own branch, and be able to build some teams and collaborate with others. So yeah.
So for me, I've been at Indian Head for a number of years. And so I've had a number of different positions where I'm just going to focus on two that are like that were super rewarding. First one was when I was a production engineer. I developed the here we go, the acronyms. Cartridge actuated device, aka a CAD. Those are the little explosives or propellants, I should say, on the back of ejection seats for aircraft pilots. And so whenever they have to leave in an emergency, and you see how they pull the cord, and then you see the little of the canopy removing, and then the seat flies up. We create those. We refurbish them. We test them. We ship them out. We do that at Indian Head. And so as a production engineer during that time, we would constantly get notifications whenever a pilot anywhere in the world had to be ejected and which CADs were on that particular aircraft, and they can pinpoint it down to the lot. And so periodically we would get those exact pilots to come down to Indian Head to say, thank you for saving my life. And so we had that happen a number of times. So it's just like it came full circle. All of these classes, all these math classes, all these different engineering classes, all these trying to maintain budgets, multiple programs, and then to have the actual pilot come to us and say, thank you guys so much for saving my life. Like that's just full circle rewarding. And then second, I would say currently how Mackenzie mentioned earlier that the current jobs we have, like the freedom that the senior leadership puts into me to have a program, make it my own, and just, all the different avenues of how they entrust you with your expertise to guide the command in the right way for this particular task. And so my current job, it's rewarding because I've worked in a number of places, but there's still many places at Indian Head I've not. And now being pretty much the go-to person for all intellectual property for the entire command. I see so much of what Indian Head does now that a lot of people say, well, you must know everything that we do. Sure. But it's very rewarding that my leadership looks at me and trusts me with one, all that information. And two, that I'm making sure that we've heard multiple times in the news lately of, documents getting out to people that are not supposed to see it. And how do we protect that? How do we, ensure that what information we're sharing is going to the proper person? That my command entrusts me to make sure that anything that Indian Head does is protected. And so that's what's currently rewarding for me.
That's amazing. That's a hard one to follow. Putting me in a tough spot here. I would say for me, my job, we get to have our input into future decisions that are made for all the submarines in the fleet for the next group of submarines. So I'm earlier on in the process where I'm doing simulations, different models to see what would our acoustic signature for my case look like. And just going, we get to go sometimes and visit some of these submarines, whether they're in the process of being built or being tested. Some of my coworkers get to go underway as well. And to see these actual boats being made and to know that they are out there and they need to hide and to be able to help make the decisions that they will be safe and well hidden, that part is very cool to know that I could help somewhere. So.
Piggybacking off that, one of the biggest things for me is like seeing that the direct fleet impact. You know, I've had multiple chances to ride boats and see stuff that we've designed in our code actually used in operation to help our war fighters. And to me, that's been very rewarding. And actually talking to the sailors as they're using a system, and thinking how much better it's made their life. But from another aspect that I've really found rewarding that I never thought about working for the Navy is the impact of what has been designed that's helped outside in a commercial and private sector, just in terms of helping people's lives. One of the biggest things is how we have such large R&D budgets that sometimes things we've designed, there's been spin-offs of things that have rejuvenated and redeveloped other aspects of processes that have really helped things. And we've seen things just in my code that we've worked on and design has been spun off, and it's now, used in a commercial industry. It's like, and you see it, and it's like, wow, I worked on that. Nobody knows you worked on it, but you're like, it's just a really kind of private, fulfilling moment. So when you see and hear and read about those kind of things.
Thanks, Jeremy. That's great for you. Jump right in there. So I'm going to keep going down my list of questions, and some of them are short. But we're doing great. So take as much time as you want. I'll combine two questions. How did your major prepare you for the job? And how did your major not prepare you for the job? What would you have wished you'd? And we all go, when you start a new job, the word new is in the term new job. You've got to do new things. That's no earth-shaking thing. But looking at your past self, what would you wish you had done that would help you now? That maybe someone told you should have done. So again, how did your major help you? But also what you wished you could have done. So it gets trickier.
Oh, dang, the problem with starting is that I have less time to think. Okay. Let's see.
Here we go.
Oh.
I'm having fun here. I'm going to switch.
I think I have, I can look at one way.
On the end. Hey, Jeremy, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Well,
Okay,
I had a thought.
Okay, go ahead.
So one of the biggest things that I was not prepared for is that when I graduated, I had this idea of electrical engineer was just what I learned. All the theory and application, all the calculus, and learning how to work with circuits and how electricity works. But boy, was I sure far from right. When I got my first job, we do a lot of engineering, but a day-to-day life of electrical engineer isn't just nose to the grindstone working equations in theory. It's the problem solving aspect, and it's interesting, looking back and thinking about it, is that really the biggest thing that I pulled from my major was my critical thinking ability. It wasn't so much my ability to solve complex math equations and apply theories and equations to things. It was just the ability to think through and break down a problem and solve the large problem into a bunch of small problems. And that was my huge takeaway, that I use it every day outside of work and in work.
Thanks, Jeremy. Critical thinking. Yeah, that seems a very logical one. So I'm switching up here so Kayla, we'll start at the other end.
So this is not too hard of a question for me. I would say that I ended up joining the acoustics branch in structural vibrations and structural acoustics and vibrations. And I only studied mechanical engineering, not acoustics, So I did have to catch up on a good amount of science to really help in the acoustics side. So I do wish that I took an acoustics class beforehand. Um, Fortunately for us, our base does have the opportunity to do some grad school courses where they pay for it. So I did take a fundamental acoustics course right away. But besides for that, I also would say that I wish I took one computer science class. I'm sure they're updating the curriculums nowadays, but for mechanical engineering, whenever you're actually working with it, depending what area you go into, you may end up working a lot with computer science, even though that's not your major. So I do wish I had a course in that and do plan on taking one. Um, Besides for that, I would say that I wish that I had the opportunity to do more panels like this. One sec. I wish I'd heard about SMART earlier. Some of my friends in college were part of SMART, and I didn't find out early enough. And it would have been great to have the tuition paid. So those are the couple areas I would have done SMART 100% if I got accepted. And I would say I do use a lot of what I learned in college at my job because I'm doing models. When you do models, you're using a lot of that physics. So depending on what kind of engineering you use, you may be building it yourself. Because of the nature of my work, we end up sometimes not using software products out there and have to build our own CAD design tools like I had to, and to build our own modeling tools with new research equations that are out there. So it's very interesting to be able to actually use what I learned as well as hopefully to take more classes.
Surprisingly, I'm not prepared. Um, I would say for me, because when I came out of college, I came out with my master's degree. So my master's degree was in environmental engineering. But I got hired as a chemical engineer, which I was 3 years removed from. So the beauty about working for NAFC is that you come in as a new engineer, they bombard you with at least 90 hours plus of trainings before you touch anything. And so it's more so how Jeremy mentioned about the critical thinking, that's really what you come out of college as an engineer or any STEM profession. You come out understanding how to solve problems, or at least having the tools to solve problems. And so when I came out of college, it was just, I'm thinking equations. I'm thinking, I got my graph paper, I got my calculator, I got my books, I got my CDs, let's go. No, we're going to train you on the job for what we need for you to do for the task that you've been hired for. And so not necessarily to just dump all 8+ years of college that I had in the trash, but it was just, you're constantly still learning. So one thing I would say that my degree or both of my degrees have helped me prepare for this job is that, or this career, is that you're constantly learning. You're constantly learning something new, learning how a department works, learning how a process is handled, learning about budgeting. That's it. That's what I wish I learned. How budgeting and how money works, especially when it comes to the federal government, acquisitions, procurement, especially procurement. Yes, that's it. That's my answer. Here you go.
Yeah, I'll answer this sort of two ways. And I think that's sort of how a lot of people have answered it so far, of like, there's sort of like the technical side of your job, and then there's like everything else to make things happen. So for the technical side, I think my undergrad, but then also more, very, very directly my like PhD, that those skills are directly translated. Planning and managing a project, reviewing literature and synthesizing what you learn from that, persevering when things don't work right in the lab. That's for sure. And then being able to present your work at the end and get it across to somebody of, this is what we found, this is why it's important. But then there's also sort of the other piece, which I didn't realize was as important. I feel like I did get it from my college experience, but I don't know that everyone does. or knows how important it is, of just being able to listen to a group of people, synthesize what the group is thinking, and being able to move that forward as actions or decisions, and like, okay, where are we going to go next? So yeah, before you mentioned the money piece, that's what I was going to say, of just make sure that you are working on your people skills and your group dynamics, in addition to the technical tasks.
So for me, this question is a little different only because I went to school, like I said, more so thinking I was going to come out and do PR. And as a multimedia specialist, I mean, it's in the name, we deal with all forms of media. So photo, video. I also handle, like I had mentioned earlier, our social media. But one thing I was not prepared for was the graphic design aspect of my job. I went into my job and they threw Adobe Creative Cloud at me, and I was like, I took one class in college on Adobe, and I couldn't tell you anything about how to work this program. But the good thing and the thing that I appreciate is that at Carter Rock, and I'm sure at you guys's places of employment too, they're very good at giving you the skills to teach you what you need to know so you can do your job. And I'm still learning. Like I said, I've only been at my job for less than a year. So if I could go back, I would have probably taken some more graphics classes, graphic design classes. But I am very grateful for all of my PR classes that I took in college, because those very much set me up for being able to figure out how to create these campaigns that we do on our social media, and just being able to understand what people want to see when they're scrolling through their social media pages. And social media is not in my job description at all. I would like to say I came into my job, like I said, and they told me you're going to be doing a lot of graphic design work and you're going to do photo and video. And I was like, okay, that's great. And randomly in a conversation with my team, they started talking about our social media pages and how basically they kind of post whenever they get a chance to, and no one was really running it. And I was the first one to be like, hey, this is what I do. This is my thing. Let me take this over. And it's been great so far. So that's something that I'm definitely grateful for, all my PR classes in college, and just knowing how to navigate putting things out to the public, because at the end of the day, our social media is representing Carter Rock and the base, and that's a big deal. So yeah, I would say that.
Okay, so I've had a bit of time to think, and it's still a really hard question. All right, so I guess things that I'll start with. I think what college didn't prepare me for is probably a slightly easier question. I didn't take a stats class in college, and that would have been helpful. That's probably like the biggest thing. Yeah, that would have been helpful, because I work in composites at PAX, and because I was there as an intern, I was part of the Pathways internship program, which has now been renamed as SSEP. Because I was there for 3 summers, I had the opportunity to go through the same sort of training programs that the other people in my branches were. So I actually had taken an introduction to composites class my first summer, because we just happened to have a professor from the Naval Academy down to teach it. And so again, it was really cool and interesting. I was like, oh yeah, I'm definitely in the right branch. This is great, right field I'm in. So in college, I was like, oh, they're offering a materials class, or a composites class. So I'll take that. It'll be the extended version. It won't be a 1 week long. It'll be a semester. And that class was a waste of my time. After 3 years, I could have taught the class compared to what was actually taught. So yeah, I would rather take an stats class than that composites class as an elective at that point. But that really does speak to the training that the command provides you. So you're coming in, you have this college degree. I think that in general, my materials classes did prepare me pretty well for a job in materials engineering. When I rotated out to China Lake with their materials division, touching all the metal stuff. Okay, I remember this, that, and the other thing. So I'm good there. My polymer stuff still checks out. And characterization, same sort of way. So the curriculum, generally speaking, did prepare me for my job as a materials engineer. So that's pretty good. So I think, yeah, just the stats class would have been nice. I think the other thing that college really did help prepare me for with my job was I was part of the Quest Honors program at the University of Maryland, which combines the business school, engineering school, and computer mathematical sciences school. And so I got to learn a lot of the business aspects, which NAVAIR is primarily an acquisition organization. We do a lot of S&T work, but the fleet support is our biggest role. Like it matters more that I'm supporting the 53K helicopter than it does I'm doing lap year testing on additively manufactured coupons. It's like where the command priorities are. So being able to understand kind of those different tool sets that you use on more of the business side. So your houses of quality, your fishbone diagrams, your Garvin's 8 dimensions of quality, your Lean Six Sigma, all of those have been incredibly helpful in my job, and knowing how to use and leverage those tools makes me more effective. So that was an additional bonus that I got out of my college career that has helped me a lot in my job. I think that answers the question, but correct me if I'm wrong or didn't touch all the aspects.
So I thought of something else that actually could have helped. Not necessarily me, but I have seen, since being at Indian Head for as long as I have, I've seen the need for students to come in that have taken Toastmasters. A lot of times you're thrusted into a program, sometimes sight unseen, not necessarily prepared, but you're thrown into a program and they say, okay, we have a budget, we have a deadline, we need a body, do it. And then after you do it, now you have to present it. So we have a lot of times, we have these engineers, especially after COVID, when everybody's not necessarily interacting with physical members of their team. And then they have to put together a presentation to show what deliverables they have or where they're at on their program or where they at on their budget. And how many times I've witnessed a lot of engineers or a lot of scientists just stumble through just trying to get their point across. Like, we know you're not capable. We've seen that. We've seen that in the work, but you still have to have those interpersonal skills. You still have to have those people skills in order to get your work out on a presentation or in a paper. And I mentioned Toastmasters because what you're going to find as you go through your careers, regardless where your careers are at, is that networking is key. Between mentorship, networking, internships, that's what really drives your career path, because you might have a career path in mind, and a lot of times it ended up being a spaghetti model. Never know how you got there, but because of the connections that you made, because people look at you, they hear from you, you present yourself well, that you are smart, you are capable, and you get the job done, and you get it done correctly. That carries you much further than just what you learned in college.
Thanks, Shannon. Thanks, Terrell. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to start with Jeremy. I haven't said the next question yet, but then I'll go back to the normal order of Shannon. I will not yank microphones away anymore this afternoon. Yeah, but it's fun. And I don't have very many questions left as we wind it down in this hour. And now I think you guys are. I think you've answered many of these questions. So I'll going off topic a little bit is great. So Jeremy, what surprised you? What was the biggest surprise when you started your career starting working for the Navy?
Oh, the biggest surprise. Well, oh my gosh. My knee-jerk answer to that, my knee-jerk reaction is that, wow, it's a big organization and the cogs aren't always oiled. The biggest surprise to me is how much variety the job brings. You know, I was always, I don't know if it was just instilled into me or just the opinion I made that, you know, like when I was hired as an engineer, I thought I would just do engineering. Boy, was I wrong. There, you wear so many different hats, and it changes so often, and there's so much variety, and you're always on your toes, and you have to, you know, you have to take everything differently because you don't know, I get assigned one project as a PM, the next project I'm an engineer, and then you got to put your business hat on, and it's just the amount of variety at first was just, it blew me away. I did not even think it was something remotely that we did.
Thanks, Jeremy. Um, Shannon, I'll start with you. So what was your biggest surprise? It can be, you know, constructive and negative too. If it's something that you had to overcome, that would be see, I'm combining my questions as we get to the end. I've got to have something you can overcome, but think about as a surprise, something as so they get harder.
They definitely do. It's the biggest surprise. So I started during COVID. Well, I guess that's half true. So I was an intern starting in 2017. So I was already pretty familiar with the command by the time I converted to full time. So I guess the biggest surprise is like because I started in this completely virtual environment, you know, I got to go in because I was lab personnel. So there were me and 3 other people in the office. But for my acquisition support activities, everything was virtual. And what was surprising to me and what continues to surprise me is the lack of engagement in the virtual environment. People are so much more willing to just click the mute button, click the camera off button, not say anything, not provide confirmation, not engage. It's easier to sit and scroll on your phone than it is to actually, you know, talk and ask questions. So I think that was probably the biggest surprise. Like why aren't people talking? Why aren't people stepping up and saying anything? I think, you know, as we're kind of getting out of the, you know, primarily telework and moving into more of a hybrid environment, I do see more engagement when we're in person. So yeah, I would say it's still surprising. Like how are we still not used to this, and how are we still just kind of slacking in that aspect? Yeah, kind of negative, but that was what was surprising to me. It's like, why isn't anyone talking?
So I think for me, going a little off of what Jeremy said earlier, I think what surprised me was, like he mentioned, kind of the different hats you have to wear. Like I said, I went to school for PR, kind of social media, and I came into this role and they threw graphics at me. And then they were like, do you know how to video edit? And I said, no. And then that was thrown at me. And half the time, if you see me, I probably have like a huge camera in my hand and I'm taking photos. So now I'm like, well, I guess I'm a photographer too. Exactly. Added to my resume, my list of things I can do. So yeah, thinking I was going to go into a career solely doing one thing and ending up doing a little bit of that, but also 101 other things. But I'm very grateful for it because it's taught me so much, and I can add it to my resume. It's all these skills that I have now. And like I said, it's always good to learn more. And I think that if I was just doing what I went to school for, I'm sure it would get, after a while, pretty boring. So yeah, I think that was the biggest thing for me.
Yeah. Yeah, my original answer, just like Jeremy said, to biggest surprise was just going to be how big the organization is. I actually, for most of my PhD research, so I did like all of my classes actually like at Virginia Tech, so like in Blacksburg. But then I actually did most of my research up at the Army Research Lab in Aberdeen, Maryland. So that was I'm going to use that as sort of my initial surprise time of like government. And I feel like my biggest surprise was there's so much equipment, there's so many nice toys to play with in the research realm, and there's not enough people. So that's always been my biggest surprise, is like, oh my gosh, we have so many things, we can do so many things. And I think we need even more people. And then sort of also on that, like what Shannon was saying, of it is a surprise that people that you would expect who would know each other, especially if it's like, oh, that's your, like, basically your counterpart, like at like a different organization, don't talk. So that's been something I've actually like really enjoyed doing, is like getting those people to talk and be like, hey, you can work together. And then I was also just going to use this time to say another thing that I've noticed, or I guess I've been surprised by, is just everyone is different and individual, and you may really enjoy something that the person next to you does not, and they're not thinking that anyone could ever enjoy that. I think you were saying physics. No, physics, yes. So unless you actually say that out loud, people won't know it, because they're just going to assume that you're exactly like the same makeup as you. So that's what I would say, is make your what you like to do known.
You would end exactly how I was going to start. I was going to say my biggest, like, oh, wow, was just when I first got started, it was a constant beratement of, so where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? I don't know. Like Jeremy said, Navy's the big pond Navy, and I don't necessarily know what is available to me. I barely know what's available for me on my command. And so it was a process of just, you give me a task, okay, I don't like it, but I was scared to say I don't like it. But that's when it came to, your networking and talking to people, and found out that at my command, they had like a speed mentoring program that, for all new hires, they throw them in this speed mentoring program and say, find your mentor. And you go into a room and you have about 10, 15, senior leaderships there, and you guys get to rotate. And from there, I ended up making two mentors there, ended up finding a third elsewhere. And from there, I found that there was all these other different programs and organizations that the Navy has as a whole, or you'll have something at your specific command. So at mine, it was something called the Professional Development Council, AKA the PDC. And so I was told by my mentors, get into the PDC. What the PDC is like a fast track to management, but it's also a fast track to get you in the face of senior leadership. And from there, I got internships within the camp. I got rotations within the command. My current job more so became because of networking from senior leadership, that you realize there are a lot of opportunities for you. You just have to be prepared. And coming into working at Indian Head or working for the Navy, you're going to be bombarded with a lot of, hey, we can pay for you to go back to school. Or, hey, do you want to get a certificate? Or, hey, do you want a rotation over here? Or, hey, do you want to go travel over here for something? So many different avenues for you to kind of like make your career whatever it is you want. And I've just been good at telling people what I don't like so I can figure out what I do like, that what I currently like. If you would have told me as an engineer coming out of high school, hey, in 6 years, you're just going to be sitting in front of a computer 9 times out of 10, just looking at documents and looking at how to mark them, and you're going to like it. No, I'm an engineer. I like to work with my hands. I like to be in the manufacturing process. But here I am. I do enjoy it. But it took a while to figure out what I did not like and how many people were understanding and receptive of, okay, you don't like this, we'll find something for you to like. And just the openness that the command has for you to be that vulnerable and say, I understand you gave me this task. I don't like it. I'm not good at it. I feel like it's a waste of my time. Help me do something else that actually brings me joy to come here. And there are a lot of people that will actually do it for you. They'll help you find either a program or an area and say, hey, How about this? They want to see you thrive. So I will say that.
So I got hired in the midst of COVID, July 2020. So my biggest surprise was meeting everyone in person for the first time. I did not picture them the way they looked. You know how it is. Most people don't turn their cameras on. So it was really a cool experience to hear their voice in person and to see them in person and to start working together. I would say beyond that, the other surprises felt a little bit less shocking. Um, the other surprises were how many opportunities there are if you want to do something. Like I wanted to do a research project. So I just talked about it casually to my task lead and then found out about the ILIR program and applied to that. And now I'm in my first year of that. And for the other work that I do, I was able to start working with machine learning, even though I'm not a computer scientist. And there's just a lot of different opportunities out there. And I would say it is extremely important to try to find those people who can mentor you. Sometimes you just sneak in before they move positions. I know lately at my base, there's been a lot of flux of upward movement, new hires coming in, people rising to other positions. And I was surprised that they did have some women in certain management positions. So that was cool to see for me. And yeah, that's all the major surprises.
Thanks, Kayla. Thanks, everyone.
I won't get on camera, but I do have a question. So I definitely want to point out that most of our panel, except for Jeremy, you're women, right? So I would love to hear from you. There's a lot of interest, and especially at the hub, of making sure women are represented in STEM and other underrepresented groups as well. So I'd like to hear from you. What's a pearl of wisdom or advice that you have of high school or college students that are coming up and pursuing STEM or tech or other industries where they're not traditionally represented? What advice do you have for them? I'll start over here.
So when I joined, I was one of the first new female hires. There were a couple of them after me as well, but it was still mostly guys, ranging in age. And I would say what I wish I knew, which is kind of obvious now, is that growing up, most of the time you are kind of grouped into your age group. And then in the workforce, you are put with multiple generations of people, and multiple generations think differently. So when you talk to them, don't be surprised when views are more generational. And it's good when you could try to put yourself in their shoes and understand, and it's good to be able to try to create relationships, work relationships with people of all ages and from all places and of all types. So just try to be open-minded and try to communicate in a way where you are understanding where they're coming from. And most people aren't trying to, say something like I know, because I have some like older siblings and older friends, and I know where they're coming from, and I'm like, you didn't say that properly, but I know what you mean. So don't be surprised if you see some of that here and there in the beginning, and that means that they're also getting comfortable with you, so that's good.
They get comfortable and get too comfortable.
You have to speak up.
So I would say the easy way to say is that you have to be comfortable with being the only one of you a lot of times. I am still the only one of me a lot of times. And when I say the only one of me, whether it's the only woman, only person under 40 or under 50 sometimes, the only African American, the only person that has colored hair, the only person that doesn't have kids, the only person that's not married, whatever. Because a lot of times I find myself being the only one of me in a room, imposter syndrome starts kicking in. And it's just like, well, you guys have been here 20 something, 30 years. What do you need me for? What can I bring to the table? And I have to keep reminding myself. A couple years ago, one of my commanding officers, Captain Scott Kraft, we were having a random conversation in the hallway, and he mentioned some little nugget to me that I said, "Can I use that as a quote on the end of my emails just to constantly remind me?" And in the quote, he said, "You don't have to know everything. You have to just be part of the solution." And so it made me realize, like, in these rooms that I find myself being the only one of me, I don't have to know as much as everybody else in the room. I just have to have a solution for the problem that we're all in this room for. And that has really like helped me when I'm in these rooms that I'm supposed to be here, that it's not a token or a sheer stroke of luck that I'm here having these conversations, and to keep reminding myself that that has definitely helped with being, one of the lone women in the room.
Yeah, so I sort of have a unique perspective on this. So I went to a private school for elementary, middle school. And so when it got time to, like, in that, I don't know, like 7th, 8th grade time where it was like, oh, the people who are in the advanced math, like you're in like a separate class, like by yourself. That was all girls. So when I got to high school and I heard the apparent stereotype of girls aren't good at math, and what I was like, that was my whole class. We had one guy who was in the class and then couldn't handle it. So that was really weird and confusing for me, to like, that just was not my experience growing up. It was like actually like a very weird, like opposite stereotype, like at our school. So that's definitely been something that I've had to like be aware of like, it does not bother me to be the only woman in the room, but I understand that for some people, they won't speak up. And so that's what I try to do, is just be like, oh, I know that someone just did like the motion, like they were going to talk, but then they didn't. And I'm like, hey, did you have something to say? So that's definitely where I try to be part of the solution, of like, make sure everybody has a voice.
Yeah, so definitely piggybacking off of Mackenzie and Terrell, please make sure you speak up for yourself. Please. I think as women, we should be doing it. Personally, I'm probably the youngest person, like in my no, I know for sure I'm the youngest person in my code. I'm, again, a woman. I'm a Latina, so I'm a minority. There's not a lot of us. And because I'm working around engineers, which is mostly male dominated, white male dominated, it's different. And sometimes when you step into rooms, people look at you like, why are you here? What do you know? And it's easy for me because I've just always kind of been naturally a leader. I'm a very extroverted, outgoing people person. So I know how to speak when I have thoughts and I feel like I need to say something, but not everyone does. And I strongly advise you to make sure that your voice is being heard. And going off the imposter syndrome thing, like, you're here for a reason and your value is amazing. And you've obviously gotten here because of, your skills. So make sure you remind yourself of that. And it's okay to feel uncomfortable at times, but don't let it silence you and don't let others silence you. And it's okay to sometimes speak up when you know you're right. In the case of, like, even with higher ups, I've sat with my supervisor sometimes and been like, no, actually, I think you're wrong. I think this is a better idea and it's my idea. And I think this is what we should do. And he has wholeheartedly agreed and been able to be like, you know what? Great. Take over. Do whatever you think is best. Again, I know not everyone's journey is like that, but just, yeah, speak up and make sure that you're making your presence known in the room, and remind yourself that you are there for a reason and it's because you should be there.
All really great things have been said. Let's see. So yeah, engineering as a whole tends to definitely be a white male dominated field. The branch I work in at Navair is probably one of the most diverse across the entire command. We are 60% women and 50% minority. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So I go into meetings offsite and I'm like, oh, wow, okay, I am actually yeah, I feel the difference. So even just going to the building next door, I'm like, wait, where are all the people of color? Where are all of the women? What the heck is going on? So it's definitely a different environment that I kind of have to adjust to, because the way that I get to speak more candidly with my branch is different than I have to present myself in this meeting with 50-year-old white men. Um, yeah, it's definitely different. But one thing that I've found to be quite helpful is using my youth as a tool, because a lot of the people that I'm interacting with, they have been around for longer than I've been alive, honestly. So they see this young person who is enthusiastic about learning, and they view it not as like, oh, this is a woman in the engineering field. They look at it as, oh, this is someone that I can teach, someone who wants to learn. So I can use that to, ask these questions, get more familiar with the situation, build that competence in my technical ability. There are definitely days where the imposter syndrome hits pretty hard, and there are other days it's like, wow, okay, I am a really good engineer. I killed that. Like, that was great. And so it's kind of a mix of both. So you have the good and bad, but you have to remember those wins and kind of remind yourself, like, no, I do deserve to be here. I am good at what I do. And kind of, let me prove that. So whether that's by being engaged, working hard, asking questions, it's just that kind of continual reminder, and that kind of helps build your reputation as a new engineer as well.
Can I do?
Sure, I'll go first. Yeah. Also, I feel like our generation specifically has been like very, like, you could hear what everyone has been saying. Like, everyone really supports each other very strongly, which is nice. And I have had the experience where coworkers also did stand up. So just keep doing that.
So when I heard people say imposter syndrome, I was like, I don't think I feel that. But then I remembered how I feel about winning all these like scholarships and different things that I've gotten along the way. And I definitely I feel like there's always the question in the back of my head of like, am I winning this because I am filling their category of, oh my gosh, a woman applied. Wow. Or is it because I deserve this award? So I don't know how to fix that, but for the meantime, I'll take the money.
Yeah, I think so. We kind of, so part of another thing that I did in college was the Flexus Women in Engineering Living Learning Community. And so I lived on a floor of all engineers, and half my floor was women, the other half was men in the male engineering counterpart. And within that program, we talked about a lot of these concepts, the idea of imposter syndrome, different implicit biases that we might have. We would read books like Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg that help, comment on the idea, like, keep your hand raised, sit at the table. You deserve to be here. You are a contributing member to this team. And so being able to take those ideas and tools and resources and just kind of the exposure to them in college has been very helpful in the workplace. Just to kind of remind myself, like, no, participate, be at the table, ask questions, keep your hand up, be engaged, and kind of disprove whatever biases that these people might have against women in the engineering field. So that's probably my last comment.
Thanks, everybody. We're getting toward the time for ending here, so I want to close things out. And you guys are great because I had just run out of questions. So Jeremy, I'm going to go around the room. I'm going to start with you. Any last thoughts for the folks listening in online? This has been a fabulous session that I think's been great for everybody. So Jeremy, I'll turn it over to you for just some last thoughts as we get to the 4:30 hour.
The one thing I just want to say to everybody is that, first off, thank you for coming and allowing me to be a part of it. And, that some advice as you continue careers and what you're going on, that I wish I could have told myself, that it's okay to not have the answer right now. You know, if you're still figuring out what you want to do, where you want to go, or anything else, that, you know, time's on your side, that it's okay.
Thanks, Jeremy. And I'll send it around one more time. I'll start at this end, just since I have the mic, I can do as I wish. Just some last thoughts.
Some last thoughts. Okay. I would say just some last thoughts. Definitely reaching out for mentorship. There's like a lot of different programs at the Navy. There's ones on different websites, so you could sign up for more than one if you want. And having a mentor for me was really, really helpful, also for talking to my supervisor, asking questions about, you know, how to approach more difficult topics or how to negotiate, things like that. Don't be afraid to ask people what their experiences are, and to try to learn from them.
I think for me, a last nugget. I don't be afraid to put yourself out there. You know, a no is not final. Having a clear path for your career, allow it to change. Not saying it's going to, but in the event that it does, you know, don't let that defeat you, or don't, you know, let it derail you so much because you had your mindset on one thing and that it deviated from that. And apply to internships, apply to scholarships, and just network, 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 network.
Yeah, so I think I'll give one side that's more like technical, like whatever you might be doing in high school, college, doesn't matter your field, and then one that's more on like the professional development side. So my first piece of advice is no matter what field you're in, think about what job you might be interested in like that 10 to 20 year range, and just start Googling different jobs and figure out like, oh, okay, once you find that job that's like, oh yeah, this job needs 20 years of experience, start looking at what they write in there of what experience do they need, what degrees are they expecting, that person, that job description that looks cool to you, who is that person that they've created in that profile, and then figure out what are the ways that you can get there. And then yeah, through like mentorship, that can definitely be part of your way, and networking of like how to get there. And then on the professional development side, I definitely just wanted to echo again, just be transparent about what you do know, and then also what you don't know, and don't be afraid to ask for help. That's somewhere where I am trying to improve. I'm trying to just be open with like, you know what, I need help here. And then also just find good people. It's it really is true of like, you know, even if it's a task that you don't enjoy, if you're doing it with like people that you like, that makes it so much better. And then vice versa. So yeah.
So a couple last thoughts from me. I agree with everything that has been said. Definitely, I think mentorship is a really big thing. If you can find someone who is already in a field that you're interested in and just pick at their brain, that's always amazing. Networking, very big thing. You will be so surprised at how far you can go by just talking to people. And a lot of the time, people are willing to help. Like I had mentioned before, make yourself known. Speak up, use your voice, and fight for what you want and what you deserve. Definitely. What else? I think just lastly, and I know this was like a big one for me and still is, give yourself grace. Everyone's journey is so different, and I didn't land my job until last year. And so it took me like a year coming out of college before I even started like working full time. And it was really discouraging, but give yourself grace. Not everyone's path is the same. It might not work out in your time frame, but it eventually will come together. And it's okay for your path to change. And from, you know, maybe what you had planned in your head. But like I said, give yourself grace, and in the end, it'll definitely all work out.
Yeah, all of these were really, really good pieces of advice. I should definitely take some of them to heart. I'm really bad at giving myself grace. Let's see. Yeah, a lot of like my kind of thoughts have been touched on, like, you know, life is a chess game. So you got to be thinking 20 steps ahead. Good mentors are always helpful. Don't be afraid to ask. What the worst they can say is no. And then like what you said, yeah, no doesn't necessarily always mean no, just like maybe right now. I don't know, final ones. Don't be afraid to take risks and get out of your comfort zone. A lot of times that's where you'll have the biggest opportunities for growth. And a good work ethic can also take you a really, really long way. Yeah, working hard, being committed, putting the time and effort into getting a quality product out the door. That's how you can really make a good impact. So yeah, I think, oh, and yeah, life allows U-turns. So, you know, you're in high school and college, you might think that you want to do one thing now, and then you take a class or you have a conversation with somebody and it might change, and that's okay. But yeah, just think big picture and you should be good.
Well, thank you, everybody. I know we've run a little bit over, but this has been so excellent. I'm going to give the microphone back to Kimberly from the Ignite Center if she wants to say. Oh, there is. Yeah.
Thank you so much again for an incredible panel. I just have a comment. Somebody had to leave, but they say, great job, great advice. And thank you for your time and participation today. So that was Teresa from one of our online attendees. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, with that, I just want to, okay, I have to find my right spot here. Okay. I'd love to thank this panel. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedules to be here in person. That is amazing. So thank you so much. Everything that you shared. I look forward to sharing it with others. We'll put this on our YouTube channel as well. So I hope that we'll see you again at the Hub. And I also want to thank our partners at CarterRock for putting this together and finding these amazing professionals to come and be here with us. So thank you, and looking forward to our fall programming as well, where our partnership is definitely around careers, internships, and making sure it's visible of what's available right in our backyard, right here in Bethesda. So that's wonderful that we have that resource here. So with that, thank you. Good afternoon. And oh, Jeremy, yes, I'm sorry. Thank you, Jeremy, for being here as well, all the way from Florida. So thank you.